Hey guys, Sean here, and oh my god, what is this? Sean's on YouTube. I'm gonna be coming back next weekend, or this weekend, I don't know, depending on when this goes up, next weekend or this weekend when PAX East is, with my yearly annual PAX coverage where I do a vlog at least each day, and depending on if there's more stuff for some reason, I will make more, but one for each day recapping what I saw, what I played, and what I thought about it. But I'm gonna be starting fresh. I kind of went away because I just did, and I'm going to be starting fresh, kind of figuring out what I'm doing. I can't promise anything other than those PAX vlogs, because I know those are happening, because they just fucking are. Okay, so, anyway, but this video is to talk about esports, and whether they're a sport, or you're an athlete, or whatever, I don't know. I was watching a video, and they were talking about how in South Korea, they're going to be offering scholarships to esports players for what I think primarily is for League of Legends. I think right now that's what they're doing, but I could be wrong. Maybe it's for another game, but I'm pretty sure it's for League of Legends, and they're going to be offering scholarships like you would to a football player or a baseball player or a hockey player, whatever, and they're calling them student athletes. Now, basically the whole video, they get hung up on the fact that you're not an athlete for playing video games, which I don't think is really the whole point. Like, I just don't think that's what we need to get worried about. Like, you're arguing over whether we should call them student athletes. And I think if you're, coming from a school's perspective, like you're the college, you're doing this, you have to think about, okay, so we have students, and then we have student athletes. Those are our two kind of categories we have. You can get a scholarship for being really smart, or you can get a scholarship for being an athlete. We have two categories for how this works. You are coming here to play on one of our teams or whatever, so you kind of fit into the athlete group. And until we start offering scholarships for Call of Duty, Dota, League, CSGO, like all these other games, it's probably easier to just call you student athletes. Now, in the future, if, this school was fielding teams in 10 different games, and all this stuff, you can maybe start calling them student esports players or something along those lines. Like, call it whatever the fuck you want. And you can make them their own category that doesn't say athletes in it. But when, you're sitting here trying to figure out where it goes, it's like, well, it's like a sports team. It's like one of our other sports teams we have. So they fit in that group. That's just where they fit. And until you start offering this for more teams and more games and more things, there's really no reason to go through the trouble of being like, they're student esports players. Or like, adding in this caveat for one group of, 10 people or whatever. Like, that's just a waste of time, and confusing and unnecessary, and probably just easier to do it this way. But, they got into the whole thing, but then, I started thinking about, like, are they athletes, are esports sports, and I wrote this whole thing, and I wrote a giant comment, and it's on my Google Plus page, probably. That's what YouTube said it was going to do. I don't actually know if it landed there, but you can go read it if you want. Just click on I don't know how you get to my Google Plus. You'll figure it out. Type my name in. I don't know. But so there was, I wrote this whole thing, and I was talking about how, like, okay, so are they athletes, first of all? Now, if you've ever played games of any kind, really, if you've played Call of Duty online just for hours, it doesn't even have to be, in an esports setting, in competitive, which I have a pretty good amount of experience with. I played a little bit in Modern Warfare 2, but not that much, and then picked it up from Black Ops 1. Definitely really heavy from Black Ops 1 through Modern Warfare 3. And I was still semi-active during Black Ops 2, and with Ghost, I've been pretty much retired. I'm on hiatus with competitive Call of Duty. I got the juice flowing again this weekend, so I don't know. We'll see. I don't like Ghost very much, so maybe next year. But, there's a stamina required on top of what is already, I think, hopefully obvious to everyone, like reaction times and, like, coordination with your fingers and things moving like that. Like, that part, I think, definitely fits in because, you have to have reaction time to hit a baseball. Now, do you have to have the same reaction time to hit a baseball that you do to press a button on a controller? No. I mean, hitting a baseball is exponentially harder than pulling a trigger. But, if you think about Call of Duty, like, if you're a second late compared to the other guy, he's going to hit you with one more bullet, you're going to die. Just, that's how it is. If you miss your flash over a wall in League of Legends, like you hit it too late, you're dead. You didn't get over the wall. So, like, there are split-second decisions you have to make, and that comes in, and if you're you know, if that's part of an athlete, which I think it is in any sport, then, okay, that's 1 point for them being an athlete as far as video gaming goes. But the part I brought up that I don't think anyone who doesn't know about games who's talking about this really thinks about is stamina. Now, I don't mean stamina like I can do 100 push-ups in a row, or, you know, I can run 8 miles, or whatever. Like, that's not what I mean. But, like, you know, if you start, like, an Icons tournament like I used to play, and we never went all that deep, but sometimes we went, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th round or whatever. You know, you play starting at 3 o'clock, and the tournament would usually end, like, after midnight if you made it all the way through and won it. And you play from 3 to, like, 3:40, that's your game. You have 20 minutes before 4 o'clock, which is your next match. 4 to 4:30, that's your game. You sit there, and you're here from, you know, 3 to, like, 9 p.m., just sitting in the chair, every half hour playing, you know, 3 games or whatever, and then waiting for your next match, kind of playing in between, warming up, staying warm, not, like, losing it. If you've ever played a game that long, you know that the later it gets, the harder it becomes to still play well. Like, the longer you've been playing, the worse you start to play. You know, you're tired, you've been sitting here forever, you're bored, you're whatever, and that is a part of it. And now that's not necessarily stamina like my fingers are tired. I suppose that could happen, but it probably won't. I don't think. It's maybe if you're just not used to playing games, your fingers might get tired, but for anyone who considers themselves any competitive player of any game, I hope your fingers don't get that tired. I mean, I suppose in a scenario that you were playing like 20 hours, then maybe, but that's not what we're talking about. But, like, there's a mental stamina to that, and I don't know if that counts, but I think that it should count. If we're trying to jam esports or playing games into this tiny little hole that we've developed for what an athlete is, I think that has to count as a point towards being an athlete. Whether or not it actually is like, okay, well, we're trying to make a case here. I'm trying to make an argument. I'm doing the best I fucking can to make this sound good. And, you know, I don't think that it's ridiculous or, like, rude to call people who play games athletes. Like, people get really worked up about it, like, you're not an athlete. You don't fucking, you know, lift weights or whatever. But, okay, fine. But we're trying to fit it into a category. Maybe, yeah, it could stand on its own in its own category, but right now we are trying to introduce it to more people and get more people to appreciate it so it can be its own category. You have to be like, okay, well, it's like a sport or whatever, because if you're trying to get the guy who's over there with his shirt off, spray painting the team's name on his chest, drinking beer or whatever, to get him to understand, you have to be like, okay, so, you know, like in football, how they score a touchdown? Well, in League of Legends, you have to destroy the Nexus, or whatever. Like, you have to try and get stupid to understand what you're saying and not just laugh you out of the room immediately before you even get to talk. And so, in that sense, it is important to try and jam it into these things. And is it a sport? Okay, but what's a sport? From the video I learned, apparently, that chess is recognized as a sport by the Olympic Committee. It's not in the Olympics, but they recognize it as a sport, and I guess, like, when they decide what sports are going to be in the Olympics this year, it is on a list that they could choose from as sports to try out and, you know, try to get in. It hasn't made it, I don't think, ever, but it's on that list. So, if that's a sport, then League of Legends is a sport. And I say that with not ever playing League of Legends in a competitive setting. I've been playing a lot of League lately, but not ever in a competitive setting. But it's a sport because there are teams. It's competitive, and teams aren't even important, but there's teams, it's competitive, there's money involved, and it's no different than chess if we're going to say chess is a sport. If chess is a sport, League is a sport. League is like really big chess, kind of. Everyone's a piece on the board. You make a wrong move, you die. It's kind of like chess. Checkmate is when your Nexus goes, but kaboom. Because you didn't do it right, you moved your pieces all wrong, and now you're fucked. And, you know, if we're trying to get people to appreciate how big esports are getting, the LCS right now's current sponsors are Coca-Cola, which is probably the biggest soda company in the world, and at the current moment, Game of Thrones, like HBO's Game of Thrones, is advertising on League of Legends. Like, the LCS schedule is brought to you by Game of Thrones. Hello? HBO, like, League of Legends should be buying ads on HBO. HBO should not be buying ads on League of Legends if we're going to think about this from the perspective of someone who doesn't appreciate esports. I totally get why HBO's doing that with Game of Thrones and buying ads on there, because they like the fans kind of cross over in a sense. Like, they would probably like Game of Thrones, or at least a percentage of them would. So it makes sense to tell them about it. Now, I kind of want to wrap this up because I've been going on for a while, and it's I think I've said everything I wanted to say for the most part. I think that was pretty much what I was getting at. Now, do we call them athletes? Do we call them players? I like players. I like calling them players. I don't feel the need to call them athletes. I think that's awkward. Because I think, in my heart, I don't think they're athletes per se. But I think that there are athletic qualities, or qualities that you would attribute to athletes that you could also attribute to esports players. So, do we call them athletes? I'm calling them players. Now, like I said, school's going to say student athletes right now because it just fits. They fit in that category, kind of, and it's easier than creating their whole new category for this extra group. Like, you're not going to have one team that you made a whole new category to accommodate. It doesn't make sense to do that. That's ridiculous. Now, what do you call them after? I'm calling them players. Do you want to call them esports? I don't know. Players, the student esports players. I don't know. I don't know what to call them. That's what I think. But I'm a fan of esports and regular sports, normal sports, like run, jump, skip sports, whatever the hell you want to call that. Ball sports is what they refer to it as. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but ball sports. So that's what I think. That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna end this because I'm gonna go way too long. I've already gone longer than I planned to, so what else is new? Me going way too fucking long. Anyways, though, what do you think? Do you play any competitive esports games? Which ones do you think you're an athlete? Are you not an athlete? Could you be an athlete one day? Should it be called a sport? I don't know why we can't just call them esports. Because, like I said in my comment, I think esports is fine because card games are card games, video games are esports, and chess is chess. I don't think we need to call chess something else. We can just call it chess. It's chess. Esports incorporates all video games being played competitively. That makes sense. Card games. Card games. We don't have to call that fucking, we're watching sports. Poker. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Why do we have to say sports? It doesn't have to be sports. It can just be poker. Why can't it just be poker? Poker is poker. Anyways, I'm done here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later.